Welcome back to our second episode of Marathon to Muscle, everybody. In this project, I'm going to be showing you how I take my goal of running a marathon and then transitioning that over to my goal of gaining back a little bit of muscle post-race. Now, a lot has happened over the last month since we last met. First of all, I took a pretty long trip over to Germany to visit a bunch of family, and we had a whole lot of fun. We also had our first snow here in Chicago. I got a DEXA scan to see really where I am starting this project. And overall, we completed this general physical preparation phase where we were getting a lot of volume, different types of movements, moving in different directions, really just getting out of the habit of running and into the habit of more resistance training for the next 6 months. So a big part of this first proper week of this training program is getting an assessment, seeing where I am really starting. Now, for me, I chose to go get a DEXA scan, which is a very fancy x-ray, you can think, which gives you an idea of how much body fat you have, how much lean muscle you have, and also bone density and things like that. Now, this isn't necessary for everybody. You could simply monitor yourself via your bathroom scale or maybe some progress photos. I'm going to be doing that as well, but I really like the science of all this stuff, so I chose to spend a little bit of money and get a DEXA scan as well. In addition to the assessment, I've also begun to progress my workouts, my sleep habits, and my nutrition over the last week. So first, let's take a look at the results of the DEXA scan, where there were some surprises. First, we'll have a look at the body composition analysis. In this section, what we're looking at is your total mass. For me, it's 191.8 pounds. That's all of my weight. And that is made up of 35.8 pounds of fat mass. We all have fat, and we should all expect to see a number there. Our second number over here is lean mass. This is muscle and bone, 147.6 pounds. If we look down here a little bit further, it just shows the distribution of, where that fat might be, where that muscle might be, and where there's maybe a little more weight in bone. The DEXA scan also looks at visceral adipose tissue, which is the fat that's around your organs. Now, the technician was telling me they really want to see this under 1.5%. The lower the number is, the better. I'm at 0.68, so that's very fine. But she did note that if, over the last couple weeks, my diet has been lacking, it might be a little bit higher, such as it is here. After all, I was in Germany eating schnitzel and spitzel and all the other delicious German foods with no worry whatsoever. Over here, we have a number which is measured in volume. This is how we can compare our visceral adipose tissue. Now I'm at 20.06, which puts me right in the ideal and healthy range, which goes from 0 to 52. I'm quite happy with that. Going further down, we have our android to gynoid fat body distribution ratio. Ideally, this should be less than 1. My ratio is 0.87, so I'm quite happy with that. This section is really quite interesting to me. First of all, they have this graph over here which shows your bone as well as your lean body mass and your fat mass color-coded on these pictures here. Over here, you can see a little more distribution of lean mass and then fat mass, lean being the orange, fat being the yellow, and doesn't look like there's too much yellow on there. I was expecting more, because for me, I look at myself in the mirror and I don't see myself as particularly lean. And I know that might sound funny because some people might look at me and see me as very lean. And that's an important point, that our perception of selves may not actually be the reality. And that's something that we should all be very sensitive to. Our perception is only the way that we perceive ourselves, not the way that others perceive us, nor some objective measure such as a DEXA scan. In fact, while it's not shown in this report, the technician was showing me that my body composition is on the high end of ideal. whereas I would have expected myself to have been a little bit worse off, more in the average range. But she assured me that I was definitely in the ideal range. This is the really cool part for me. This is our bone mineral density. This is how strong your bones are. You can think of it as that. For me, my mark is way up here at the top, and the technician said I was basically off the chart. We have a high score of 4, and I basically got that high score of 4. And I think this is a good testament to 20 years of resistance training. I started working out when I was about 12 years old, just doing push-ups and squats and some weight training in the basement. And here I am now with a good store of bone mineral density, which I hope will help set me up well for the rest of life. In this section, we have our muscle balance analysis. And really side to side, I am mostly balanced. There was nothing here that the technician was concerned about. And then lastly, down in this section, we have our trends. Now, I've only had this done once, so we only have one measurement to look at here, but at the end of this, we will have another measurement to compare and see how things have changed over the course of marathon to muscle. Okay, now that we've got our starting point, let's take a look into our notebook and see what we've been up to over the last week. Here's a reminder of our plan. We finished phase 1, which is our general physical preparation, and now we're into phase 2, which is our accumulation phase. This is going to be about 1 month long. Our first week we've completed, and you can see the results of that over here. In this week we had 1, 2, 3 workouts and then another little workout just for fun. Our first workout, this is really going to be the base of our workouts over the next month or so. What I had was a light warm-up of some shoulder cars and hip cars, followed by some bench pressing, front squatting, bent over rows, overhead press, and deadlifts. Now this was performed really as a circuit today, where I did 11 reps of a bench press at 95 pounds, 11 reps of a front squat at 95 pounds, 11 reps of a bent over row at 85 pounds, 11 reps of the overhead press at 45 pounds, and 11 reps of a deadlift at 175 pounds. 3 times through. 11 reps because, well, the number really does not matter that much at this point. We're really just trying to get good high quality repetitions and find a little bit of fatigue. The weights, they're really quite light as compared to my 1 rep maximum right now, simply because the objective here is to accumulate a lot of repetitions over 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, a whole month of training. So these don't need to be heavy. Maybe they're less than 50% of my best, and that's perfectly fine. We're just trying to accumulate high quality. Further down, we have our sleep and our nutrition. And as we spoke about before, these are probably going to be the most important parts of this program for me. Number 1, sleep, because it's something I struggle with. This one's going to be very important to me because when we sleep is when we recover. It's when our body heals and we can have the opportunity to build that muscle that we set up for in our workouts. So to get better sleep this week, what I did was I chose to not sit on my phone before bed. So as I'm lying in bed, I chose to read a physical book instead of reading on my phone. The second thing we have is nutrition, and I set the goal of getting 150 grams of protein per day. And as you can see, on Sunday I fell a little bit short, Monday I was a little bit over, Tuesday I was a bit over, Wednesday I was short, Thursday I was just under, and Friday I did not have a very good day, and then today is Saturday, so there's nothing in there quite yet. This is something I need to work on. This is challenging for me. Now, I was tracking these on my phone, just counting grams of protein that I consume a day. I don't like to track all of my macros. I don't like to log every single thing into a notebook. So for me, just tracking grams of protein is a very feasible way for me to make sure I'm staying on track with my diet. Ideally, for building muscle, I would like to be getting 1 gram of protein per pound of desired body weight. So for me, that's around 200 grams of protein a day. And this first week just shows that in order for me to be able to get that, I need to be disciplined with my meals and really plan them ahead of time. So that is a summary of everything we've done in week 1, and it went well. I'm feeling good about the plan so far. As we progress through onto week 2, week 3, and week 4 of this accumulation phase, we're going to continue to accumulate a lot of really high quality repetitions in our workouts. Over the next 3 weeks, we're going to continue to make some changes in this accumulation phase. For our workouts in week number 2, we're going to slow down the tempo of the movements. So particularly our descents in the movements are going to become more slow for the sake of gaining muscle. Looking into week 3, I will try to increase the weights that I'm using in our workouts. And then again in week 4, we'll hopefully try to have some more increases in the weights. As for sleep, week 1, we just didn't use the phone before bed. That went well. As we go into week 2 with sleep, we're going to continue to just not use the phone before bed. As we go to week 3, this is where we're going to start making a little more change. We're going to add in a positive affirmation around sleep. Now, I have a couple pet peeves in life. The first pet peeve I have is when people put themselves in a box where they say, I am not a good sleeper, or I will never sleep well. I don't think this is the right attitude. I think a lot of other coaches would agree with me. The second pet peeve I have in life is when coaches tell people, well, you need to change your self-talk. You need to tell yourself that you are a good sleeper, or you are going to sleep well tonight. And this puts a lot of pressure on you. I don't like that. Because what if you tell yourself that you're going to sleep well tonight, and then you don't sleep well that night? It just isn't really all that encouraging. So instead, my positive affirmation is that I'm going to tell myself every day that I am making positive steps towards sleeping better. And I'll remind myself of that. Maybe it's that I'm not using my phone before bed. Or maybe that positive step is that I'm reading a book that I really enjoy. Or maybe the positive step is I'm getting to bed a little bit earlier. Whatever it might be, I'm going to focus on the good things that I've done rather than the expectation that I'm hoping to meet in weeks and months down the road. Then lastly, in week 4, we're just going to continue on with those 2 things, no phone before bed, and then the positive affirmations. And then lastly, with nutrition, in week 1, we were shooting for 150 grams of protein per day. In week 2, I'm going to try to get to 175 grams of protein a day. This is a bit of a jump, but again, we need that extra protein in order to build the muscle, which I'm after. In week 3, we're going to up the grams of protein to 200 grams a day, and we'll hold there probably for the foreseeable future. So taking a look at this overall, we're not trying to make huge change at once. Each week, we're just trying to make a couple of little changes. I'm not going from 150 grams straight up to 200 grams of protein. I'm not going from going to bed at 9:30 to trying to go to bed at 7:30. Also, I'm not trying to take my workouts from not doing much resistance training to doing 6 or 7 days of resistance training a week. This is all a gradual build to set ourselves up for the most success over the next 6 months or so. Okay, so that's a summary of everything that happened in week 1, as well as what I'm expecting to do over the next 3 weeks. We'll check back in about 3 weeks' time when we start our 3rd phase of Marathon to Muscle. More regularly, I'm going to share updates on Instagram and on my blog, so if you want to follow along with that, check on those places for updates. If you want to be involved in this, if you want to follow along because you have a similar goal to me, shoot me an email, send me a text message. I'd love to have you included in this program because this is really much more fun when we get to do this together. So again, stay tuned for our next video in about 3 weeks' time. Follow along on Instagram or on the blog, and get in touch with me if you want to be involved in this project together.